Greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm Professor Spira, and I will be continuing reading certain selections from Professor Arnold Ehret's Mucusless Diet Healing System, annotated, revised, and edited by Professor Spira. Today we are in Lesson 16 under the section called Drinks. Even if the use of table salt is discontinued, you will sometimes be very thirsty during your transition diet. Because your mucus, now back in the circulation, and the waste of decayed, unnatural foods eaten with salt during your former life is very salty. When in the circulation, you will suffer from unnatural thirst. A light lemonade with a little honey or brown sugar will relieve the thirst much better than plain water. The juice of any of the acid or subacid fruits makes a good drink, and the best is sweet apple cider, if not too sweet. So the sweet apple cider, this is not hard apple cider. There was a discrepancy, or somebody had brought that up once in the forum. Their interpretation was that the sweet apple cider meant that Ehret is recommending an alcoholic beverage. That is not the case. In this case, this is essentially apple juice, or it could be warm apple juice, but this is not a fermented drink here that he is referring to. And even though we're talking about drinks, Ehret is referencing and laying out another principle, which is to not continue to use table salt. And there's some other sections in the book that bring this issue of salt into question. But here it's clear that Ehret is not a fan of using salt on vegetables and that kind of thing. And so for me personally, salt was one of the things that was the easiest to give up and to get off of. Just regular old salt. That doesn't mean that I didn't eat foods that, especially like store-bought kind of things. If it was like a tomato sauce or something like that, there were things that I bought that had salt in it, but I was able to totally discontinue using any kind of salt on my food, vegetables or whatever it was I was eating. That was one thing that I was able to adopt fairly early on. And we got our light lemonade here with a little honey or brown sugar. There's other sweeteners that you can use. If you're sort of an anti-honey vegan, there's a lot of other sweeteners that can be used. You can make, I call it Brother Air's lemonade. He kind of gave me a really nice recipe with early on in my transition that I used a lot. That was essentially 2 lemons, the juice of 2 lemons and 4 or 5 apples, and just juicing that. It's very, very simple, but that's just a very good natural lemonade combination in my opinion. Next, postum or cereal coffee, or even light genuine coffee, if this was your customary drink, can be used during the transition period. So this is something, I did not have a problem with coffee. Coffee was not something that I drank. When I was growing up, there was different times where I had coffee here and there, but this was not something that I was addicted to. I was not a caffeine person. Caffeine gave me a headache. But I've worked with a number of people that have been addicted to coffee, and you gotta just you transition like anything else. And as Ehret says here, if you start off on coffee, don't feel guilty about it. You use it for a while, but then start experimenting with some other things. Warm honey lemon water is something that I know a number of people have been able to get off of coffee using warm honey lemon water in the morning. And there's other options. I know some people that drink warm vegetable broth in the morning and instead of the coffee thing. So there's things that you can check out. You want to experiment with that. And postum, that I don't necessarily recommend that. That's actually something that was taken out of by Fred Hirsch, that was eliminated from later versions of the Mucusless Diet. See, a lot of people talk about, well, the original diet book and this kind of stuff. Not a lot of people. There's really only been a few people that have had something negative to say about putting out an annotated version. And I never told people not to check out the original versions. In fact, I got plenty of versions, and this is not the original version, although this is what's out there. And I encourage you, get as much as you can of Arnold Ehret's work. I don't care what you get, but it's about the study and reading, and the practice. But this is a 1994 edition. It is quite a bit different from earlier editions. This is an earlier edition, and this is the 1924 fourth edition. This is the oldest edition I've ever been able to find of Mucusless Diet Healing System that is in physical condition. I've never found a 1992 or 1922 version. I have found records. There's copyright records that prove there was a publishing of a 1922 version of the Mucusless Diet, but I've never seen anybody even have that. I mean, that would just be wonderful. I would go crazy if I could find an original version of 1922, but I don't even know what it looks like. But this is the 1924. Now, if you compare this to this, you will notice differences there, and these are differences that were made probably by Fred Hirsch, who was the editor, the person that really championed the Mucusless Diet from 1922 until the 1970s when he retired. And there's few people I've ever heard talk. In fact, I've never heard anybody talk about these discrepancies. It's something that I'm trying to bring to the table, and you can find them yourself. You don't have to. And there's some people don't like to listen to me, fine, but if you want to do the real study, then that's what you want to get into. And one of the things that there's quite a bit of things that were changed in the vegetarian section, in the menu section, from the original to this, because there were certain foods and combinations that I guess after years of experience Fred thought were a little better. So I would just like people to understand that when you talk about read the original. Well, this is really not the original. The closest you can get to the original Mucusless Diet book is this, unless you know where the 1922 edition is. This 1924 is where it's at, and I based, for the most part, with some exceptions, and when I know, and I talk about those changes, but I based the original text portion of the annotated Mucusless Diet on the 1924 edition, and there's more, and there's so much to talk about with this, because then we have the issue of translations. Israel is almost done. He is done with the first draft of the Spanish version, so we're editing that right as we speak right now. There was quite a bit of things that we found that, or I should say, Israel found, that are just straight discrepancies that were translated poorly or translated wrong, and some key issues that explain certain interpretations of the Mucusless Diet within other languages, particularly in this case the Spanish-speaking world. So that's topics for all kinds of other videos, but I just seeing post them just kind of reminded me of that there was certain things that we that or is different from when you go from the 1924 to the 1994 versions of the Mucusless diet. So things to keep in mind. If you're a purist and you really want to deal with that original, then you got to get you a copy of that 1924 edition. Next, supplement to transition diet menus and combinations. The standard menu of the day. In fact, you know what? You know what we're going to do? I'm going to pause it right here because this is a really important section that I'm about to read. So stay tuned, and I'm going to get into this next section about the transition diet menus and combinations. Dedicate a separate video to that because I think that would be best. So I thank you so much for tuning in. If you have some questions, concerns, anything like that, please comment down below, and I will get back as soon as I can. Sometimes I have so many different accounts over so many different social media platforms that I'm not always able to really cover everything with quickness, and sometimes I'll let a certain thing go, but I'm gonna try to stay on the YouTube thing a little bit better. So I love to talk to you down there and just see how you're doing. And yeah, so until next time, peace, love, and breath.